Good morning, everyone.
Good morning.
Happy Friday.
Jai Hind.
Jai Hind.
Jai Bharat.
All right. So today, let's have a quick look at Sitecore CLI. All right. So the agenda of today's session starts with what is SCS. So we'll start with SCS. What is SCS? So we'll look at it. Why SCS? How to use it? All right. And then consider Sitecore CLI to be a part of SCS. Okay. So it's basically the whole concept that we need to understand first. Right? And in that particular concept, we will look at Sitecore CLI in detail, and then some additional things which are generally utilized in our projects. Okay, so what is SCS? SCS is Sitecore Content Serialization. Right? Basically, it's a system for serializing, sharing, and deploying content items. So it could be within developers or from a developer machine to the higher environments where we work on. And technically how it works, we serialize the items, templates, stuff like that into file system, put them into version control, commit it out, right? And then as developers, we have some commands to take those between developers. And when we are talking of the higher environments, that is basically taken care by the DevOps team in the CI/CD pipelines, right? And SCS was introduced in Sitecore 10, and it is continued since. All right. So again, important thing is we now know what is SCS, but why SCS? What is the requirement, right? So of course we want some system which helps us being efficient in sharing our content items or templates or stuff like that of Sitecore with each other. We don't want Sitecore packages to be dealt with, right? It's very difficult. It's tedious, and we'll of course make some mistakes. We'll override each other's fields or something like that, right? So we need something. But we already had tools like TDS, or we also had a free tool like Unicorn, right? But then all those who have been working with Visual Studio, I'm sure they will accept, because I do too, that for example, if you have TDS, initially it is super fast, but as soon as you have more number of items, it becomes slow, right? So eventually, while maintaining the project for a longer duration, your Visual Studio becomes slow. Your file structure is also pretty huge, right? And you require that plugins into Visual Studio and to do all the stuffs. But here, what happens is all that item data is available in usual JSON files, which is either a YML file, all right? And that was again a benefit of Unicorn. That Unicorn was very fast, and it was no way related with Visual Studio, right? So then it was very fast. So consider SCS as the best of both. The TDS that we had, it was a very good tool for developers to work with. It was also allowing different commands for putting our items onto higher environments, right? Then Unicorn was lightweight, was very fast. It was kind of a free tool, right? Made by community for the community. Now Sitecore bought TDS, right? And then they came up with SCS as a concept, and then they brought up like two things into picture. One which is free, similar to Unicorn, which is Sitecore CLI. So CLI, as the name suggests, it is a command line interface where we will need to install various NuGet modules, and we can start the pull and push of those content items or templates or stuff like that. And the great thing, doesn't require any license. So again, TDS required license. Unicorn did not require license because it was a community tool. So if you're using CLI, you don't require a license. But what if as a partner, you have already bought licenses for your developers? Right? You already have a TDS license. Fair enough. Use Sitecore for Visual Studio, which is SVS. Okay, the same license can be utilized. Again, SVS behind the scenes uses the concept of CVS, SCS, and that those particular items that are available, they can then be utilized using a GUI, which is available in Visual Studio. But remember, moving ahead, we are all moving towards the CLI path. So from an understanding standpoint, even if we do SVS for now, it is always good to understand CLI because Sitecore has bigger plans for CLI. And when you talk of higher environments, it is always going to be CLI. All right. So for us, conceptually, it is very important to understand what is CLI, how to use it or how to work with it, and what all capabilities does CLI have. Primary capability, as we have now understood, is what? Serialization of content, moving of content within developers or to higher enterprise. That is the primary responsibility or primary requirement. All right. So again, we have two ways in which we can use SCS. One is CLI and second is Sitecore for Visual Studio. All right. So let's look at what do we need to do from installing and configuring Sitecore CLI is concerned. All right. So we need to perform some steps. All in all, if you look at it, like 10,000 feet view, we have these few steps available. One is informing Sitecore that what we want to utilize Sitecore CLI. Next is adding a manifest. Then we install and initialize Sitecore CLI. Then we authorize CLI with our Sitecore website or instance. And last, we perform the CLI operations, specifically serialization. There are other operations available like publishing can be done, indexing can be done, right? And that mainly will come into picture for our higher environments because in our usual environment, our developer workstations, we can very clearly do it by right click, like we have a GUI available. Then why do we do it CLI? From fun perspective, we can do it, but not necessary. Right? So let's have a look at the steps in action. So as we mentioned, first is the prerequisite, right? So we need to install a package called Sitecore.management services. And this package basically tells Sitecore that we are going to configure CLI and we are going to have something which can be then utilized for serializing items or content into the file structure. Second prerequisite is having .NET Core 3.1 available on your machine. Please note 3.1 again, if you go right now and try installing it, it is already deprecated and a newer version is available. But from Sitecore's documentation perspective, these two things are required. Right? So what we'll do is we'll quickly go and look at these prerequisites and see right. So that particular link, it took us here. All right. So here we have various CLI versions, but it is very difficult to understand, right? Which version do I install? So technically, what should we do? Right? We should go back to downloads and we will have Sitecore experience platform available. So by default, we have the latest, but then we have different versions available here. Let's say my application is for Sitecore 10.2, right? So I'll go inside Sitecore 10.2. Over here, it will tell me which version of Sitecore is supported. Sitecore CLI is supported. All right. And the best part, I will have that particular CLI package available here. Best case scenario, always go to the Sitecore installation location to identify the version and install that particular CLI version. Okay. Now, what if there is already a Sitecore version installed and you don't know about it? I'm sure you know how to find it, right? How do you find it? Can anybody just tell me one of the ways? How do you find which version of Sitecore is installed?
Problem for
checking the license file in the Sitecore instance.
Perfect. I was just seeing that. Hope everybody is awake in the morning. Thank you. So, for example, this is 10.2, right? So if I go ahead and click on Sitecore CLI, it will take me to one of the options to download it, and then I can install that particular package and then get started. All right. So let's get back to the presentation. Next, we'll open a PowerShell or a Visual Studio terminal for that matter, and we'll open a directory in that terminal or PowerShell. Please note this has to be as an administrator because all these actions that you're going to take requires administrator access. Then we will fire the first command, which is .NET new tool-manifest. That command will create a config folder in the physical directory and add a config file there. And then there will be some configuration added, right? The second command is we install Sitecore CLI, right? Please note, if you go to Sitecore documentation, you will only find stuff till index.json. There is a specific reason why I have added -- version to be something. Whenever we are installing in any of the lower versions of Sitecore and compatibility is not available for the higher versions of CLI, there will be challenges. Hence, the first step which I showed you, wherein we went to the Sitecore download location from where we selected CLI, that is exactly the version which we specify here and get it installed. All right, and hence the installation step includes -- version with a number. This number will have a direct matching with the one which you download from Sitecore CLI location. Any questions still here? All right. Third command is we initialize the Sitecore CLI using .NET Sitecore init. So when we do these steps, so we have just what we have done. We added a manifest file. We have installed CLI, and then we have initialized CLI. So what all happens in the background? It's painful, but I hope you'll be able to see the part which actually should be visible. .NET new tool manifest basically it creates a manifest file, right? Which looks like this. Next, you are installing Sitecore CLI. You're first adding the source, and then you are installing CLI. I'm sorry if the one above is not visible. Right, then you install it. So what happens? You have this folder structure available. As soon as you do those two steps and in it, you have the folder structure available with all the folders and all, right? So we have basic configurations available here. Okay, and the Sitecore .json is something of importance for us because it holds all the other pieces linked to it. So for example, there is a modules section, right? So the modules section has some path. It is a wildcard path. We will keep it as is, but change it or tweak it a little bit based on our project structure, right? But we'll not change that starter module. Okay, there is a reason behind that. We'll look at it. Then we have different plugins. So as I mentioned earlier, CLI is used not just for serialization, but for other things as well. They are already mentioned there, right? So those plugins, the first plugin is serialization. So primarily it is serialization, but then it can also be used for publishing, indexing, or package creation, package installation, database cleanup, right? So all those plugins are available there. And then there are some other properties which we can ignore for now. All right?
Yeah, only that two properties that one is that length of your item path. So you should consider that 100 which we have configured in this config file. So that your path should not go beyond that character. If it goes, then it will generate and has folder in your system, and there you just store the file. And that the serialization name which we provide, so that's the folder which that system will create when you run that command. So we'll see in demo. Yeah.
All right, next. So we have initialized everything. Okay, we have the structure available. Now is the time to connect it with Sitecore. Right. So technically what we need to do, we need to authorize the CLI that we have installed in a physical location to connect to Sitecore. Right. So there are two ways in which this can happen. For simplicity right now, so there are two ways. One is called interactive, one is called non-interactive. Okay. Think about it as interactive, which is in your local box, you will always have interactive. Okay. But for example, you want to do this, let's say you are having containers or stuff like that, and then you need to do it for your higher environments. So generally DevOps team uses the non-interactive one using client secret and client ID, right? But for our current demo and current simplicity, we want to use interactive only. It's available in documentation, so you can follow the documentation and have a non-interactive connection as well if required. Okay, so we'll provide .NET Sitecore login authority and the URL of identity server, and then -CM, the CM instance, and then allow write true. Okay, this again will save some things into our structure that we have in a user.json file. Okay, so that is what we did. We fired that command, right? And what it did is it is waiting for authorization. So if you see there on the third step in the command prompt, there is authorization pending waiting. So at that time, what does this command do? It opens up a browser window. All right, the same URL that we had given, it opens that up and it asks us as developers working on the machine to provide it enough authorization to do this activity. As soon as that is done, when we say yes, allow, those configurations are saved in the user.json for future to come. Right. So once this is done, our serialization is set up. Okay. Then we create a module. So module files. So how do we really look at module files? Okay. Module files, think about it. We have Sitecore paths available, right? Sitecore/templates, right? Similarly layout, similarly renderings. Okay. But over there, we generally use Helix principles to create projects. Like first of all, we create sections, foundation, feature, project. And then inside that also, we might have feature projects. We may have foundation projects. And we have templates like base templates. We have something inside foundation. So consider all those paths to be mentioned in some JSON file and some properties to be assigned to it so that serialization can happen. Because I have connected with Sitecore, but what to serialize? /Sitecore? No. I need to serialize very specific items which are specific to my project. I don't need to serialize default Sitecore items, right? So that configuration happens in the module, and we will look at it as well during the demo. All right, and then we simply do serialization pull, serialization push. Okay, so when we looked at that particular file initially, that file is just changed a little bit. Behind that overlay, if you can see, initially it was /tools. We updated to /src. So that src is kind of a folder location in that particular main folder directory, okay, wherein the modules will be residing. Other things remain as is, right? And if we want to understand or identify a little bit about the module file, so we can consider this, wherein we are just having a namespace for it, and what type of items does it include as a section, like templates section, then rendering section, and inside that we can write rules. And those particular things again we will look at in the second part of the presentation, but that is how we can do it. So as a basic level, even if this section is included, our serialization pull and push can start similar to this. As soon as we have that module file available, when we say push, it will push these items to. All right, are we good here? All right. So for demo, I'll stop sharing my screen and Tushar.
Yeah. So let me know once you are able to, okay, we are able to see. So here I am currently logging into Sitecore instance, okay, where my site is created. Let me just, okay. So this is one of my current project on which I am currently working, and I'm going demo on that. So let's assume that we are logging into Sitecore and we have created our site, right? This is my site, and I have created multiple content items in that site, okay? And inside the layout, I have created multiple components, renderings, and the templates. So these are the normal things which we are doing in Sitecore, right? In our day-to-day project implementation. So now we have the items are present in our system. Now we need to run that CLI command into our system that will allow us to serialize those items. So let me just log in into. So first of all, when we are in a PowerShell or command prompt, we need to navigate to our project folder, which is for me is a Sitecore folder. So I am currently navigating to that folder. Now, the earlier step which Varun has mentioned in that PPT, right, that we need to install. So those are the things which I have already done in my system. I will just go through that part. So here, so let me just open that folder here. So this is the basic structure which will automatically create it when you run that three command. So init command which you run, then the default structure will be created. Now for the Helix guideline, we have created one folder SRC top on top of that. In that we have created three folders which are basically used to store our module.json file to store. Okay. Now in this sitecode JSON file, we need to configure those things. Like here we have, as the Varun mentioned, that we need to configure a module location. So this is the wildcard path which we have given. So it will go inside the SRC folder here. It will go inside the SRC folder. It will take that particular foundation feature and all the folders, and inside those folder, we have created our module.json file. So here you see this is the module.json file for feature. So in this feature, we have added templates and rendering same way for foundation and project. We have added all those stuff here. So these are the configuration files which we need to done before we initiate our command. Once we are done with our configuration, and then we need to move into the PowerShell or command prompt. And then, so now I am in that directory where I have created my JSON files, all the modules JSON file as well as the Sitecore file which I have updated. Now I need to go in, I need to connect my with my Sitecore, right? So for that, in that our previous slide, we see that we need to run that command. So for interactive login. So this command is for interactive login. When I hit this command, so basically in that command, only the first thing is that identity server URL. This one is our CM instance URL. And then when I click on hit button, so it will open this pop-up in my screen. So I need to allow the system to process the thing which I need to do from the CLI. So here I get a message that your login is complete. You can close your browser tab now. And then now we are ready to use our different commands which we need to use to serialize our item. So either we have uh, like let's take an example that there are two different developers who are working on a same project. So some of the modules which they are working and some of the modules which you are currently working. Now you need to, so those both the things are currently serialized into their system and they have committed into the version control system. Now we will pull that those when we get a latest, okay? So at that time we receive those items from the another person who has committed. So those thing we will need to use command like push and pull. There are two commands which is a primary which we have mentioned in slide as well, which are used to get the content from Sitecore and push the content inside the Sitecore. So let's do one command like .NET serialization. So this is the command which we need to use. .NET Sitecore SCR. We can write serialization full as well here keyword and then full command. So when we hit this command, so currently we do not have any items available which we need to sync from Sitecore. So let's create one item in Sitecore. So inside this dictionary, so I have, let's add one item inside this dictionary folder. So let me duplicate this item and name it as a CLI #01. Okay. So I have created around uh, 3 items. Okay, in my Sitecore system. Now I want to serialize those items into my system. So for that, I need to run that command again. So this command I run again, and when we run that command, so we will see that the item which we have created just before this command execution, those are now serialized into the file system. So now when we serialize those items, so you will be able to see those items in your commit. Here you have also those item available. So the client CLI demo 01, right? This YML file which is created in our system. So this is the file which has a data of our content which we have added in Sitecore. Once that is done, we can commit this file into our Git repo. So the another person who is say working on the same project, they can take clone of that Git repo and they can post these changes to that system. Now same way we have another command is a git push command, which that serialization push command. So this command will basically do push operation. So you have those YML files available into your system, but those are items are not created in Sitecore. So when you hit this command, it will sync your local folder with your Sitecore instance. Right now, I do not have any item available, which is in my system, and that is not available in Sitecore. So that's why it gives me this green message. Now there are a couple of more commands are there. I will just share the that document. So these are the different commands which we can use while we perform the operation. So we are only utilizing these two command mainly when we need to get the data, when we need to push the data, and these are the different commands which will you can try from your side as well if you because right now if you are going into that detail then you are confused with what exactly, and this is the validation command. So sometimes what happen, the same name items are available multiple times, and that those type of issues in your system. So you can use this command to validate your file system data as well. So this is something which is related to commands, and
I just
yeah.
like to add something here. Can you go back to the documentation, please?
Yeah.
So if you go scroll down a bit, we have something called watch. Okay, so technically what it does, it keeps based on the modules and the configurations that you have done. When you say or when you tell CLI to watch, it will keep watching your Sitecore instance as and when you are working on it. Okay, and it will keep updating it into your file system. Okay, so that is also a good way. So, for example, if you know that something you are working on is urgent, you need to get it done, something like that, keep CLI on watch and keep working. All the things will be available, and then you can directly commit. That is also a good way of configuring it.
Yeah, I think this is all about a demo, so we can go further now. So is there anyone have any question on that?
When we are using push command, so if there then it will merge or
So in that case, we have some rules set up on config level that will go on further slides. So there you can specify that if you want to create that item, if you want to create an update rights you need to assign, if you want to, there are three different levels, and four is ignore maybe. So that create, update, and delete will override that item. If you have mentioned that create and update only, then it will update that item. And only create, it means if you have deleted in your local, but still that file is there inside, it will not delete that file.
So let's look at this from a usual flow diagram standpoint. Okay, first of all, we'll have to configure for configuring Sitecore CLI, right? We first need to fulfill all its prerequisites, right? Then again, one question which I was expecting but I didn't hear is हमने setup तो बता दिया, is the setup required every time? Because if you have multiple developers working on the same project, right, not everybody needs to set up. One can set up and others can just use, right? So is CLI already set up in your project? If the answer is yes, you just need to do .NET Sitecore restore, and all the configurations that are available for CLI, which was set up by the first developer on that project, will be available in it. If it is not set up, of course, you initialize using .NET tools, install CLI, right? And then you check whether you require interactive login or not. Of course, your local workbox, so you will require interactive login. But for example, you are setting it up as a DevOps person, okay? Then you will not require interactive login, and then you can set up using client ID and client secret. Both the cases, after this is done, what is utilized is module definition, and we can start serialization. All right. Okay. Tushar, over to you for module conventions. So if you want to.
Okay, yeah. So in demo, we have seen that module.json file, which we have created for serializing those items. So here in this slide, as Jill mentioned, that if I want to restrict user, avoid to on some items which are required, but by mistakenly they are not able to delete. So that's why we have allow push operation, which I mentioned below, so that the create only, create, update, and delete. And so when we configure that module.json file, so in that JSON file we have rules available. So in that rules section, we have scope attribute, and then we have allow push operation attribute. That those two attributes are consider when which type, like I want to serialize only that particular item. I want to serialize that item with its children. If I want to serialize only that item's descendant, so that will be taken from that scope attribute, and then the allow push operation will be used to restrict user to if we said that only create, so user only create an item in Sitecore. So when we run that command, it will only create. It will not remove if someone else has removed and commit any file in their local system. So yeah, can you just move to the next slide?
This scope is for both the commands pull and push, or just pulls?
Okay, that will be here. So I think that is only for the push command. It is not for pull.
Pull will be everything.
So it will, when you pull, so if that item is not there, then in your local folder, it will remove your local folder, but it's still there in your Git repository. When you do a checking, at that time you see that some items are removed, which are still I want, then you can undo those changes from the Git. So once we set these are the different criteria. So let's take an example that we have set the create only. So in that case, if the file is available in my file system, but it is not in Sitecore instance, then it will create that item. In three cases, all three cases, that item will be created in Sitecore. Now, the next thing is that if that item is available in my file system, that item is also available in Sitecore. Okay. So create only will ignore that item to the syncing part, but the create and update part will update that item into Sitecore, and delete one is also updating that item. And sometimes, like let's take an example that you have that items you have created for your own, and that is not available in your file system right now. So, and at that time, so when you do that command, push command, it will delete that item from Sitecore. So that's the metrics which we need to understand, that in which scenario, which allow push operations, we need to set in config file. Just go to the next slide.
Mostly to create, update and delete होता होगा. We want to make sure sync happens.
Yeah, so if we have 5 people working, okay, so you do not want that all people will delete if sometimes they do some changes which are by mistakenly they have committed, and if I sync everything, then that those items are removed from the system. Like if you are creating events, or you have the products page, right? On product page, you have multiple product listed under that particular section, and you only want that user will only able to create those product, they will not able to delete. So in that time they create product, they commit that particular product details into the file, and then if they push, and that deleted file will not remove from the instance.
So in usual scenarios, it is good to have create only for content and create an update for templates, renderings, layouts, any other sections of the content tree. Okay, but if it is content and media library, it is always good to have only create only, because as developers we will be creating test content, right? So we don't want to actually push it even to the repo, neither do we want to push it there. So such cases, then we can ignore them. And but then for templates, right, for example, both developers, let's say me and Kiran both are working on the same template, or we are adding a section. If we have create, update and delete, I have created a section, he has created a section. In usual cases, what we will do, we'll take down merge from the repo, and then after taking down merge, we'll first do a push. Whatever is available in the repo, let's put it in our Sitecore instance. And if we have create, update and delete, my section will get deleted. Okay? So in all such scenarios, it is always good to use create and update.
So let's go from the demo.
In that case, we have to manually delete the changes which are
Correct. Yes, but that is definitely painful, but it is at least better than overwriting somebody's changes, because then we have to identify.
That is the most important. Yeah. So manual deletion is still.
Okay, so for the demo purpose, I have created this one example, and okay, but unfortunately my Sitecore is not working right now, but I will show you in this from this Visual Studio Code on that, and then we'll see on the actual project the same scenario. So here I have created that module.json file for my site A, which is I have created in my Sitecore instance. So inside A, I have around 4 to 5 sections items available, like home. Under home, I have services item. I have contact us page. I have about us page and so many other pages are there in my site. Now, from that particular home node, I do not want to serialize everything. I want only the serialization for the specific item and specific section. So here I have added one rule. In that rule, I have mentioned that item path. So this is this item path which from where I need to do serialization. And then here the scope which we discussed in our slide where item and its descendant. So all the childrens which are created inside this item will be serialized into our file system. And here I have allow push operation, which I configure as a create, update, and delete. So it will give a full control when someone remove, and it will remove from the system. And another rule which I have written is that star and scope is ignored. Okay, so it means it will only so one important thing that the rules which we written here, which will be executed based on the top down approach. So whichever rule match first, that will be executed first. So if you have mentioned that ignore star rules above this the first rule, okay, then it will not serialize that services, because that rule will have all the items which are in under the home will be ignored. So now that is one thing which we need to take care. Now this is something which we want to ignore item, so that's why we have added this rule. So initially this rule I have removed that rule earlier when I initially do the serialization. So in that case, my serialization config will look like this. Okay. So then I have run that pull command, Sitecore serialization pull command. So in that case, it has serialized all the item inside the home, like home, service one, service two, and I haven't created another items into that, but it will create all the items YML file in my system if I haven't configured this rule here. If I configure this rule, then it will only create respected items which we have configured in that rule. So that way, that rule mechanism will work. And here in the folder structure, so you can create your one single module JSON file also. You can, it is based on your requirement. We are mostly following the Helix standards. So that's why we have created 3 folders. And as we see into that config file, right, that we have configured the Sitecore name in that sitecore.json config file here. Sorry, not Sitecore, it's a serialization. Sitecore.json config file. So here we have configured the folder name, right? So this folder name basically that CLI has used to create a folder for our serialization item inside this particular section, right? So here we have that serialization folder, and then inside that serialization folder, let me go to the project folder and we'll see there. So inside that serialization folder, we have currently configured 3 sections, right? So this is our folder name, okay? So here content folder, template folder, and the rendering folder. So here in folder structure, we have 3 folders created after executing that command.
Just a moment.
Okay, it's take. Okay, lagging. Okay, so we have in that config, we have 3 sections available, content, rendering, and template. And those 3 folders are created inside our folder system when we run that pull command. And in that particular sections, we have home item. And inside the home item, we have services, okay? And these are the different services item which we have created in our Sitecore tree. So same way, the same funda we can follow for our all the other module.json file, and we can include that. So these all the files. So what exactly the CLI do? CLI first visit this sitecore.json file. This is the first point of contact, and from there it will pick this folder it will pick this node that what are the different modules I need to pick. And in that modules, so it will go, so we have here given the wildcard dynamic path. So we can add multiple entries as well here, static. So it will go into that foundation feature or project folder, and it will take that project foundation or feature module.json file and generate the serialization item based on those configuration in our local system. Okay, I think this is all about the demo. And if we want to, already we have seen that command which we have executed on this level, right? So we have already created one item in the site, and that item is serialized in our local file system. If you want to see that item, let me just go to that folder. So we can check what exactly that item look like. In the serialization, we have
Wait a
global.
Blue.
Sorry?
Was not syncing.
So here in this system, file system, we have all those the two items are created, that YML files here. And you click this. So it has all the data which we store in Sitecore. So those item ID, its parent ID, template ID, item path, okay, and those these are the fields which are there in item, like that the ID they have mentioned here, that ID and its value, okay, and we those are the share field, version field, all the things will be there in your YML file, so it will sync correctly when you do the push operation. So yeah, that's all about the demo. Okay.
Order of rules, again, think about exception handling. आप अगर exception ऊपर लिख दोगे और नीचे thread exception लिखोगे तो thread exception में कभी नहीं जाएगा, right? So you have to have an approach wherein it is specific to general, right? Hence the path ignored was the last one. So there can be multiple such rules written in the rules array, right? And one can be create only, one can be create update, one can be create update delete, right? All such things we can do over there.
It is the first match is considered,
Yes.
rest will be
It
ignored.
moves top down. मतलब for example home के अंदर like we have news, then we have blog. For example for blog we have written create only, right? For news we have written create, update and delete, right? And then the others like the services we have written only create and update. So all those specific sections will be dealt with in those specific manner, and in the end you have star ignore.
या अगर मैं दोनों जगह पाथ सर्विसेज कर दूं इस केस में, इसमें
हाँ.
and नीचे I have ignored, ऊपर I have create update delete,
वो homework.
ऊपर वाला will take care.
Homework.
That first one will be taken care
First
of.
match.
Yeah, first match. So the second one it not consider in that
So
execution.
you have to talk to bottom is your first match, take it.
Take it.
It is fine.
You can, but not suggested.
You can change
But
it will.
someone changed the ID. So was this rule?
All the best figuring it out. So these files are, of course,
Good question.
Good question. Good question.
yeah.
So
Right.
okay.
Good. Anything else? If no questions, then one of the two possibilities, either सब कुछ समझ में आ गया या सब कुछ bounce रह गया. I hope it's not the second case. All right, no issues. I think If there are any further questions during the day or maybe later as well, feel free to contact any one of us. Thank you, everybody.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Tom,